Now, your questions for our guests. I'm joined by economist Walter Williams, who's taught me much of what I know, and also by Heather McDonald of the Manhattan Institute, and by ex-police officer Neil Franklin. So, first, a question for Walter Williams from my Facebook page. Donovan Lukes says, what's the most pervasive economic myth in the U.S.?
Well, I think the most pervasive myth is that something can be had for nothing. That government can give one American $1 without first, through intimidation, threats, and coercion, confiscate that dollar from some other American.
From the audience, yes? Go ahead.
I just want to say I agree with Mr. Williams. Welfare has become less of a government aid and more of an early retirement fund at the hands of taxpayers for regular people who get laid off.
I think one of the things that most Americans, I think it's a tragedy for our country, most Americans think that one American has the right to live at the expense of another American.
I think
that's
people
immoral.
believe the other Americans are people like me who have extra money, and it's only fair to take it from me and give it to somebody who's poor.
Well, I think, well, if I go outside of your studio, I can find some poor person out there, some hungry person, and walk up to you with a gun and say, John, give me your $200. Then, having gotten your $200, I'll help that poor person out. Would you send me to jail?
Yes.
Yes. And so is there any difference when the government does it?
On that note, yes.
I feel like some of the black people, like black Americans, but they're given less chances. So I feel like that's why they're always resorting to like making the quick money.
By selling drugs, you mean?
Because it's a lot easier for them to do that instead of, you know, getting a job and being turned down every time. They have no other outlet to resort to.
Well, that's one of the reasons why our drug policies need to be changed. We need to move it into a regulated and legal market. When you have very few, if any, job opportunities in many of our urban neighborhoods, and these young people grow up in these neighborhoods and they see the #1 employer is the illegal drug trade, that's where they end up. It's the path of least resistance to get what they need to survive.
So if it weren't illegal, there wouldn't be all this money in it. Those people wouldn't make the quick buck. They'd live a smarter life.
And your neighborhoods would be a whole lot safer.
Heather, you disagree, obviously.
I understand the argument, and I understand Neil's perspective, but I would say again that we're circumventing the issue of free will and self-control. And there are enormous numbers of young black males who are choosing to stay straight in the inner city. To say that they're somehow forced into the drug trade, I just think is wrong.
Another question from Facebook. Jared Graham says, wouldn't the end of government assistance cause violence?
Well, if you look, we've been a nation since 1787, and we did not have the welfare state until the 1930s, and only a tiny bit at that. And so you say, how in the world did we make it?
All right, but now people have gotten used to it. They feel entitled to it. You cut this out, people will riot in the streets.
No, I don't think so. I think that one point is missed in conversations like this, is that black Americans have made the greatest gains over the highest hurdles in the shortest period of time than any other racial group in the history of mankind. If you added up the amount of money that black Americans earn each year and thought of us as a nation with our own GDP, we would be the 18th richest nation in the world. Black Americans are some of the world's most famous people. It was one black American who was in charge of the world's mightiest military, namely Colin Powell. Now, in 1865, neither a slave nor a slave owner would have believed these kind of gains would be possible in just a little bit over a century. And as such, it speaks to the moral fortitude of a people. But just as important, it speaks to the greatness of a nation in which this kind of progress could occur. And why did it occur here? Well, we're not a perfect nation, but we are the freest nation, and we have been the nation with the least government interference.
Thank you, Walter Williams. Thank you, Heather McDonald. Thank you, Neil Franklin. When we return, evidence that minorities do better when government helps less, and my take on this.